Actually, their wedding ceremony took place long before, in 1534, because when Aisha Hafsa died in the spring of that year, Süleyman quickly married Hürrem and made her the ruler of his harem, and then he left for a campaign. This campaign was against the Persians, and it actually started even before 1534, but Süleyman did not left the capital because he wanted to be by his mother's side while she was dying. So instead of Süleyman, Pargali Ibrahim led the army. But when Hafsa died in the spring of that year, Süleyman had to go and lead his army by himself. The war lasted quite long, but in 1536 Süleyman was safely home, so it was time to celebrate their wedding. Ambassadors suggest that Hürrem may have pressed to have her stature as Süleyman's legal wife made public. The whole royal wedding apparently caught some in the foreign community by surprise. For example, the Istanbul representative of the Januaries Bank of St. George said that this week there has occurred in the city a most extraordinary event, one absolutely unprecedented in the history of the sultans. The Grand Signior Süleyman has taken to himself as his empress a slave woman from Russia. There is great talk about the marriage, and none can say what it means. At night the principal streets are gaily illuminated, and there is much music and feasting. The houses are festooned with garlands, and there are everywhere swings in which people swing by the hour with great enjoyment. In the old hippodrome, a great tribune is set up, the place reserved for the empress and her ladies, screened with a gilt lattice. Here Roxalana and the court attendants a great tournament in which both Christian and Muslim knights were engaged, and tumblers and jugglers and a procession of wild beasts. Mihrimah Sultan died in January. Before I talk about her death, I feel that we should know something more about her last years, because we know a lot of things about her life during Süleyman's reign, but after that she's quite missing. After Süleyman's death, she helped her brother Selim, but basically during his reign she just stayed in the background and spent her time on charity instead of politics. She lived in the old palace, Eskişehir, and never fought with Nurbanu and anything like that. All of these are just bad rumors. She lived a very pale life these years. Based on the facts, we can assume that she may have some kind of depression, because with the death of Selim, she was left alone in the family, having so far lost 4 brothers, both parents, nephews, her husband, and her own son. Broken with so much pain, she probably no longer felt that she should care with politics. She just retired, and her daughter Aisha Himasha continued her path. We don't know exactly what was the cause of Mihrimah's death. Sultan Murad decided to bury Mihrimah next to her father, and actually with this Murad was breaking a long time tradition, because sultans usually rested alone in their tomb. However, Murad exactly knew how close Süleyman and Mihrimah were, so actually he just felt that he should bury Mihrimah beside Süleyman, and he did so. The previously mentioned Murad III, also died in January, but with his death, his son Mehmed III was enthroned also in January. Mehmed actually was not the best sultans of all time, but wasn't the worst also. He didn't really care with politics. He let his mother Safiye Sultan to rule instead of him. Safiye dominated Mehmed's whole reign, and there is a very interesting fact about it. As Mehmed was enthroned in January, Safiye's unique power also started in January, and she lost her power in another January. In the January of 1604, she was exiled from the Topkapi Palace, which was her home for years. Safiye's son Mehmed died in December the previous year, and his very young son Ahmed was enthroned at the age of just 13. He was still uncircumcised, unexperienced, so Safiye maybe hoped that as a politically active, influential and experienced woman, she will be able to stay in Topkapi and help the young Sultan and his mother. However, Safiye was not really liked by anyone. There were a lot of soldier rebellions against her in the previous years. The political situation was very, very fragile. The soldiers had not yet decided whether they liked the new Sultan or not, and Ahmed wanted to win the love of the soldiers. So this is why he decided he will send Safiye to the old palace. Soldiers loved this actually. Most people think that this was some kind of exile, which is partly true because it was an exile, but this was also part of a natural process, because with the death of the Sultan, of any Sultan, his entire harem, his mother, his concubines, his daughters, unmarried daughters, his wives, all moved to the old palace according to tradition. And so Safiye, like the mother of the late Sultan Mehmed III, belonged to the old palace. But Safiye, as a unique and extravagant woman, she wanted to do something special, and it wouldn't suit for her if she would just go to old palace and okay, I'm exiled, yeah, I will live my life here, it's okay. No, this was not Safiye. She left Topkapi in a rather extreme way. Most of the Topkapi Palace harem were loyal to her, and the ones who were not, they were both to be loyal. So when her departure came, almost the entire harem, including servants and concubines, followed her in a voluntary exile. But that was not enough for Safiye to leave the new Valida Sultan alone in the harem. She ordered her servants to destroy the harem. All the windows were broken and other damages were done before they left Topkapi Palace. And on the way to Old Palace, Safiye sobbed so theatrically, loudly in her carriage that even the people who otherwise hated her felt sorry for her. So yeah, the new Valida Sultan was left alone in the Topkapi Palace in a really, really damaged harem, while the old Valida Sultan, Safiye Sultan, left Topkapi in a really stylish way. Anyway, Safiye lost her influence for a lifetime with this action. I want to share with you another very interesting fact about this. The damage of the harem was so great that the Grand Vizier did not believe the estimated repairing costs. So the Grand Vizier asked the Sultan if he can go to the harem and see the damages by himself. And the Sultan was like, okay. So the first time in history of the empire, the Grand Vizier received permission to enter to the Topkapi Palace harem. In the end, of course, they did the repairs and they managed to restore the Valida Sultan's apartment and the rest of the harem. There is another thing which happened to Safiye in January. We don't know her exact date of death, but most historians suggest that she most probably died in 1619, most probably in January. The reigning Sultan was Osman II, Genç Osman the Young, and before his reign actually, the whole succession system changed. Before that, when a Sultan was enthroned, he had to kill all of his brothers based on the law of fratricide. However, it changed, and when Osman was enthroned, it was not okay to kill your brother. The thing is, Osman was very, very unpopular, and this made him afraid of his younger brother Şehzade Mehmed, who was son of Kösem Sultan, a very popular Sultan, the widow of the previous Sultan Mehmed I. And so Osman decided to execute Mehmed. Mehmed's death shook Istanbul. Poets of the age often write about this bloody event with immense disgust. Naima, for example, openly condemns and calls Osman a tyrant for making an innocent prince, Mehmed Khan, a martyr for his own power. According to legend, while Mehmed fought for his life with his executioners, he cursed Osman. He said, "Osman, I beseech God that your life and your reign be full of dread as you have deprived me of my life. May the same fate be yours." Whether this curse is true or not, the end soon reached Osman. A very similar end. A few days after Mehmed's death, a huge snowstorm struck Istanbul, killing thousands of people, and commoners thought that this whole terrible event, this snowstorm, is a revenge of Allah for Osman's disgusting act. So Osman's very low popularity even sank below, and soon after Mehmed's execution, Osman was dethroned and brutally executed and mutilated. Though Osman was very unpopular and people didn't really feel sorry for him, still the fact that they executed him without a legal decree, a fatwa given by the Shaykh al-Islam, bothered the Pashas and the people. So in the end, the reigning Sultan decided to use one of his trusted Pashas, Davud Pasha, as a scapegoat. The Sultan and his mother said that Davud Pasha executed Osman without their approval. So they blamed Davud for everything. In the end, Davud lost his life on 18 of January in 1623. However, we must admit that it's nearly 100% sure that Davud acted with the permission, if not the order, of Halima Sultan, the reigning Sultan's mother. So he really was just a scapegoat in the situation. In January of 1632, events striked again. Kösem put her own trusted man into important offices, and she helped bribery to go on. Meanwhile, the empire lost more and more territories, and bribery became even bigger, and Kösem appointed her own son-in-law, Hafiz Ahmed Pasha, to a janissary office, which was just too much. The Sipahis and the janissaries started a rebellion, and during this rebellion, they executed several loyal men of Sultan Murad, including his closest friend, Musa Çelebi. And to make matters even worse, the soldiers publicly demanded that Murad should show them his younger brothers. So in the end, Murad was forced to show his younger brothers to the rebels, but Murad never forgot this and never forgave them. In fact, Murad was immeasurably humiliated at this time. He lost his allies, his close friends, and no ruler could leave that unrevenged. When Murad IV was enthroned, he and his mother decided not to execute the former Sultan, Mustafa I, because of his mental instability. Mustafa had some kind of health issues and had a troubled mind. He was like a little child in an adult's body. So this is why they did not execute him when Murad was enthroned, but closed him up. In the end, he died on the 20th of January in 1639, most probably by natural causes. His death put the current Sultan, Murad IV, in a very unusual situation. As a former Sultan, they could not bury him just next to anyone, and there was no empty place in any of the mausoleums anyway, so even if they would want to bury him to, beside his father, or they couldn't, because there were no empty places. So Mustafa's body laid for hours before they found a solution. Actually, it was Evliya Çelebi's father, the palace's goldsmith, who resolved the crisis. There was an oil storage room in Hagia Sophia that no one had used for centuries, and Evliya's father suggested that they should make it as Mustafa's tomb. So eventually it happened. Mustafa was buried there, his body was buried with soil from the imperial garden, and later his mother was buried next to him also. Mehmed was born in January of 1642 on the first or second day of the month. The relationship of Mehmed and Ibrahim was very, very troubled. Ibrahim was really crazy. He was not crazy like Mustafa I, who was like a child. Ibrahim was really a paranoid and aggressive kind of guy. When Ibrahim saw his son, his newborn son, he found the baby ugly, and he preferred the vet nurse's son. Actually, Ibrahim treated the vet nurse's baby as his own and totally ignored Mehmed. For some time, the mother of Mehmed was calm and patient because, what should she do? But after some time, once she asked Ibrahim why he did not like the child, and etc., and in the end, Ibrahim became so crazily mad that he threw the baby to a canal. Baby Mehmed was saved, of course, but he hit his head so hard that there was a scar on his forehead for his whole life. Soon Ibrahim became influenced by Jinji Hoja, and he went against his mother and the Grand Vizier. It reached the peak in the January of 1644, as he wanted to exile his mother to Rhodos, but then he changed his mind and exiled her to only another palace in Istanbul. But at the same time, in January of 1644, he executed the Grand Vizier Kemankeş Mustafa Pasha. Süleyman II became a sultan after Mehmed's dethronement. Süleyman was enthroned in 1687, and with this his mother Saliha Dilaşub became the Valida Sultan. However, Saliha Dilaşub couldn't really enjoy her validaship. She soon fell ill and she couldn't even leave her bed, and in the end she died 3rd of January in 1690. We arrived to the last important occasion happening in January, and it's quite funny because the first event on this list was the wedding of Hürrem and Süleyman, and Hürrem was the first Hasaki Sultan ever. And the last occasion of Januaries belongs to the last Hasaki Sultan. The last Hasaki Sultan was Rabia Sultan. Rabia was consort of Mehmed II. In the end, she died on 14th of January in 1712 in the old palace Eskişehir. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please like it and please subscribe and leave a comment. If you have any questions, you can ask me here or on Instagram, on Tumblr, or even on Telonym. So yeah, feel free for comments. Have a nice day, guys.